Okay, hello everybody. My name is Jameson Chase Young, and today we're going over the 1945 Denver Mint Walking Liberty. Obviously, this is a very historic date, so please stick around to the end because the last part, I'm not only just going over the Battle of Okinawa, but I have an interview that I did of a World War II ace fighter pilot, one of the very few living World War II ace fighter pilots. He became an ace when he shot down a bunch of kamikaze planes over the Battle of Okinawa, so please stick around for that. But in between then and now, I'd like to talk to you about the very, very beautiful 1945 Denver Mint Walking Liberty. They affectionately call these walkers. They were the silver half dollar for the United States for 31 years, from 1916 to 1947. The design was designed by a guy named Adolf Weinman, and it replaced the Barber half dollar, and it got replaced by the Benjamin half dollar. And as everybody knows, the design was so pretty, they brought it back for the American Silver Eagles that everybody likes so much. But this particular coin, you can see the D. You can see the D to the bottom left, and yeah, it's a really beautiful coin. So this is a very special coin, even though normally speaking, the coins that came out in the 19 teens and 20s, they're more rare, so they are more valuable. They're older, they're more sought after by collectors. But you know, for me, I kind of like to attach the historic value to a coin, and you don't get much more historic than 1945. These Walking Liberties were our half dollars through 2 world wars, a Great Depression, and this particular one was the half dollar during when we won the Second World War. I'd like to go over some stats with you as far as the 1945, and then we'll get around to the interview. The Walking Liberty 1945D, the Denver Mint, minted 9,966,800. And then there was a total of 51,624,800. That is the third most. The 1942 and the 1943 beat it out. The 1943 minted almost 78 million Walking Liberties. The 1942 minted almost 71.5 million. Those are the only two years that minted more Walking Liberties than in 1945. But regardless, its history is unreplaceable. Its diameter is 30.6. It weighs 12.5 grams. It's 90% silver, 10% copper, has a silver content of 36.169. Obviously, everybody just says 0.36. Now, here's the first couple minutes will be me commentating. We're going to check out the interview, check out the world that the 1945 came from. The first couple minutes are just me commentating over the Battle of Okinawa actual footage, and then we'll get around to the interview of the World War II ace fighter pilot. The Battle of Okinawa was fought between April 1st, 1945 and June 22nd, 1945. It was the last major battle of World War II. It was the bloodiest battle of the Pacific Theater, and it was the largest amphibious assault of the Pacific Theater. In the Battle of Okinawa, the Japanese military took somewhere between 110,000 and 140,000 people killed. The Okinawa civilians took somewhere between 40,000 and 150,000 people killed. The U.S. military took nearly 50,000 casualties, 12,500 of which were people killed in action. It was here in the Battle of Okinawa where the Japanese flew over 1,900 kamikaze missions, and they damaged hundreds of U.S. ships, and they inflicted nearly 5,000 U.S. Navy deaths in an attempt to push the U.S. Navy back.
It happened to be on Easter Sunday, and we, the fighter pilots, most of us were carrying napalm bombs that morning to scorch the beach. And while the invasion fleet was tremendous, there were ships banging around, on the shore, and they even had a rocket launcher setting out there lobbing rockets onto the beach. So forth, and we'd scorch the beach ahead of the landing craft coming in, and it turned out I don't think there was a terrible lot of loss on that initial landing, because I think evidently the Japanese had either guessed right or they had got some information, to inform them kind of when the invasion was going to be, because they had pulled back into the hills and mountains and so forth, and boy, then it was different. I mean, the loss of personnel really started to mount. So we continued to hit targets there on Okinawa. Our camera crews found a seaplane base, it's a little seaplane base where they had individual submarines, that just one-man submarines, and they were kamikaze type things. If they could get close enough, why, they just drive that little old sub into a ship, and try to blow it up that way. So we blew that place up, and bombed it, and destroyed it. And then a little later, we started doing something that we'd never been trained to do before. They decided that, I guess the Air Force had moved into that first airfield. In the invasion morning, they thought that it would take like 6 days to take the nearest airfield. They had it in 6 hours because of how they had pulled back, And so when the Air Force finally was able to move in there, why, I guess they were so busy that they decided they needed some help, and so they had some of our dive bombers land at that airfield, and they instructed them on close air support for troops. And like I say, we had never been trained for that, but like if the Marines or the infantry had some Japanese bottled up in some of those mountains and caves and tombs and stuff, and had them surrounded, but the only way they'd get to them was with flamethrowers. Why, then they'd ask us to come and fire rockets in there and help them out that way. And that was probably the toughest duty that we drew. We dropped bombs within 150 yards of our troops, so it was really close quarter stuff. And one time I went over and reported in, and this pilot, he said, "Say," he says, "I got a grass hut down here I don't like the looks of." He said, "Put a little ammunition into that." Well, we strafed it, and it was an ammunition dump, and boy, talk about 4th of July. It's just exploding all over the place. They had stationed a number of destroyer ships north of Okinawa, between Okinawa and Kyushu. That's the southernmost big island of the Japanese three large islands. And their duty was to be radar pickets. They used their radar to pick up Japanese planes coming in so that our fighters, could intercept them. Well, that one particular morning, that was probably, I can't remember, either 2 or 3 weeks after the invasion, why they sent Wonder 5 and all of the fighter planes from the Essex and some from one other carrier, and I never did know what other carrier that was. But anyway, they sent us over there to fly combat air patrol to protect those destroyers. Well, when you got over there, gosh, the attack had already started, and they know now there was at least 360 kamikazes coming in that flight, trying to take Okinawa back. And so the reason we spotted 2 of them headed toward one of these destroyers, and so we were I suppose probably 1,500 feet off the water, but these old, they were float planes that were flying low of the water, and they were heading toward these destroyers, you know. So we dived on them, of course, not realizing how slow they were. We overshot the first one. Neither one of us got a shot at it, but I shot down the second one. And then the division leader got on the radio and he said, "Hey guys, split up and fight individually and get all these rascals you can." And so that's what we started doing. And I got two more. That with the two I had before made me an ace. The division leader had one before, so he got 3. He missed ace by 1. The division leader had one before, and he got 4, so he made ace. And the last guy in the division was there were 2 levels of these coming in. He got into that upper level where he had a lot more room to maneuver, and he got 6 that day, so he ended up with 7 and qualified for what they call ace a day. In other words, you got more than 5 kills in one day.
I hope you enjoyed that. I'll eventually be releasing the full video, the full documentary. It's currently out in film festivals. But that is the world that the 1945 came from, and it's obviously one of the most historic, arguably the most historic date in all of world history. And I hope you enjoyed that interview. My name's Jameson Chase Young. This is Coins in History. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.